Greetings, friends! Welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by the palest door and my co-host,
Alex Dandino.
Made you sound mysterious as fuck. All right, guys, as always, if you're joining us today, we hope you love the show, and if it's your first time, we hope you will love the show. So, in that vein, we'd like to ask you, please take a second and leave us a rating and review wherever you find the show, especially if that happens to be Apple Podcast app. That helps us out a lot, growing the audience, finding more alchemists to join this party. You may see our faces as well as hear our voices on our YouTube channel, The Nerd Alchemist. Also working on some new fun non-pod content over there, so eyes peeled. We're on all the social media you're on. Please find the show. Please share the show. Tell your friends about it. Invite them over there. That helps us out a lot, and it's a good way to get a hold of us. You can also reach us at our email address, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. If you just want to chit-chat, if you have an idea for movies you'd like to hear covered on the show, new or old, themes, double features, guest hosts, anything like that. If you want to hear us talk about it, we would love to do that for you. So always reach out to us, guys. We love hearing from you. All right, guys, we're here. Alex and I have decided, leading up to our October Mega Horror Marathon, where we will release a horror movie every single day in October. It's a daunting, enormous task. We appreciate you guys joining it on us. It was really popular last year. We're hoping you'll be around for every of the 30-some episodes we've done. We hope you won't abandon us and leave us, but we have some really great shit for you. But building up to that, we had this good schedule. We're going to try to get some of these due to the year we've been having, right? We talked about this with The Wretched, right? It's been a really cool opportunity to see some of these smaller movies that sometimes struggle and get lost in the deluge of content, right? They don't make it to the big screens, right? They get drowned out by the newest whatever, that we all have to go see at the theater. And then Netflix drops a movie every 20 minutes. There's always a big next thing. Some of these movies get lost, and we have noticed there's been a really good amount of really high-quality stuff coming out in that kind of small indie range. So we thought we'd take some time and talk about some of those while we can. So today's entrance, we actually found when we were doing one of our trailer reviews. So this is Aaron Kuntz's The Pale Door. Now, you guys would have heard of Aaron Kuntz, most likely. If you listen to this show, you love Shudder as much as I. He did Scare Package, which just dropped on Shudder a while back. Really fun love letter to the horror community. This one, though, a very different fare, man. So this is a Western horror film, period piece, but with a lot of drama and heart, man. So I will start off. I fucking adored this movie. Alex, what was your initial takeaway from watching The Pale Door?
I mean, I don't see how you can. It's great. It's fun. Like, it's not. No, it is not like some big budget, Western, as most Westerns shouldn't be, to be honest with you. But
well, let me pause you there for a sec. If you are one of the IMDb nerds that gave I think I read a review on IMDb, because this movie is not doing as well on IMDb as I think it should be, right? So I was like, what's the disconnect? I saw maybe 5 comments that people are like, why aren't the shirts dirty? I was like, all right, Wild West history nerd. Like, can we focus on what the fuck is on the screen?
Maybe we just focus on the movie, itself.
Well, why did he have this color scarf? Well, I don't know, Old Navy shoe designer. I don't know. Does Old Navy?
Sorry,
I just outed myself as not fashionable. But yeah, guys, this is a micro feature film, right? Like, if you told me this movie had a budget of $1 million, right, I would be like, that seems like a lot. Like, it feels like a small indie film, right? And to me, I think that's one of the charming things about it.
This
man, you got to
figure
out how to do what you can.
Yeah, this movie, like The Pale Door, feels like a movie that's made with a lot of heart. And I think that's something that's really important. And I think that's something that if you can't see on the screen, I'm not sure we're watching the same movie. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I had watching it is like, I see performances by people who really like the material. Because look, you and I both have worked in the business. We both work with people who have been in Westerns and crime movies and all kinds of shit. And I can tell you right now, people who make Westerns love Westerns. And that's the only reason Westerns get made. I don't know if you've noticed, not a lot of Westerns in the theaters. I mean, there's not a lot of movies in the theaters these days, period. Not a lot of Westerns made it to theaters regardless, unless they were directed by like fucking J.J. Abrams. So as far as I'm concerned, any Western that comes out is a passion project, and that's unequivocally what you can see when it comes to the Pale Door.
Yeah, and to me, the Westernness just dissolves away, right? The getting hung up on like
almost
the period
immediately
piece stuff. I just think this is such a charming brother story, right? Like I love the but this is, I think you nailed it, right? And one of the things we wanted to talk about with some of these movies is smaller movies, right? They require so much more passion. And I'm not saying it doesn't take passion by thousands of people to see something like Infinity War come to the screen, right? I'm sure it does.
Of course.
Something like this, you are fighting. It's really funny. These indie crews, to me, probably watch this movie and feel a lot like the characters. We're just like, fuck, dude, I got to get up every day and work so hard for so little in return.
Absolutely.
But you just are waiting for that promised goal of someday people will see this movie that otherwise probably wouldn't get made. And this movie to me is just full of charm and love. I found it really endearing in a way I didn't expect. I was like, all right, we're going to have Wild West banditos shooting people up and murdering, right? And then we'll get to bad guys and we'll shoot them up and murder. I was unprepared for my heart to be stolen, man, by this story. I love the story between these Dalton brothers, I believe their names are, but it just, because one of the things this movie does too, which is so perfect at the start, is they literally wake up in the middle of the night and people are coming to murder everyone at their house, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, let's get the fuck out of the house. It's this tense setup. And immediately I found myself just so pulled away and being in my own mind like, oh my God, dude. This is how people used to fucking live. And so you're sitting there watching, you're like, this sucks. Like, how did people be cowboys? There's no air conditioning. You know, you're wearing jeans all the time. Like, imagine how gross your unders are. You know, I'm just appalled. Every time I see a Western, I probably waste the first act not paying attention and imagining the absolute hellscape that would be life in the Wild West. And this movie gets into it fast and hard, right? We see the decimation of a family and a family home, this and that. But they slip in these great little moments, right? The brother wrapping the scarf around the other brother's wrist. Like, this is brother magic. I swear I'll look out for you. That kind of stuff, I felt like the Grinch, right? My heart grows like 10 times. Those little beats like that, those little honest beats, I fucking loved. I love that. And it carries a lot through the movie. And that kind of little extra heart carries a lot more in a movie like this, where they know those moments have to land.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the most important thing about this movie is these characters and the heart that you can see, not just from the movie itself, because like obviously Aaron Kuntz understands what he's doing. And he also understands, like, I don't know what the budget for this movie was. Like, I've been actually trying to find out, because while I was watching the movie, I honestly was thinking, I'm like, I know they shot this in Oklahoma, but how much money do they have to make this? Because for one, they have like a very decent cast for a movie that's supposed to be like what I'm assuming is a micro budget. Like
production value, amazing.
Production values up the wazoo. Like, they're getting like Western towns and all kinds of cool shit. Like, but this cast is like Noah Sagan and Pat Healy and then Zachary Knighton, who, like, honestly, I've never seen him be in a dramatic role short of like when he's depressed on It's Always Sunny for being a drug addict abandoning his children. So like, this is like the first time I've ever seen him do anything like this, and it was really cool. But again, like, it's like I was saying at the top, though, like, nobody on this movie clearly got involved thinking, I'm going to make a boatload making this Western. No one thought that. So I think what's awesome is that everyone got involved going, I'm going to make a fucking Western. I'm going to make a fucking horror movie that's set in the West, and we're going to do some fucking awesome special makeup effects, which we'll get to. And then Melora Hardin's in it. Like, this cast is wonderful.
Yeah.
And everyone is so good. And I buy it from the jump, man. I'm with you too. Like, that scene, right after the opening scene, it cuts to like whatever, 10 years later, 12 years later, something like that. I guess maybe more. But that bar thing, the whole bit is so, it's got such charm, and it starts off as this kind of like Western-y thing. Cause like, that's the beat I'm always waiting for from a Western, is like the saloon. What's going on in the saloon? These salty dogs having a spit of shine.
Could you imagine having a hangover in the Wild West? Again, I just get stuck on this, like, why even have the broom boy? You live in filth, like abject fucking filth and misery. I asked Amy this question, right? Because there's a scene I adore at the end of this movie. The guy who plays the old tough gunslinger, right?
Yeah.
God, I forget what his name is. I'm so bad at actor names. I'm sorry.
Is that the guy Lester?
No, Lester is the guy that rode with him.
No,
Dodd.
sorry.
So Bill Sage is his name.
Dodd,
right?
Thank you. Bill Sage.
I have it on Letterboxd here. So Bill Sage is fucking awesome in this movie, and I love his character, right? But he has this moment where they're sitting in the church kind of going over the spoilers, everyone. This is a newer movie. I always forget when we always do old movies. I forget warn for new movies. But there's this scene where they're sitting in the church, right? And all seems lost, it's just those two. And Bill Dodd, this super tough, I don't give a fuck about anyone. Like, don't interrupt me when I'm doggy styling brothel ladies. Just, he's in it for himself, right? He feels a little bit greedy and not warm, right? He's not a Martha Stewart type, let's say. Not that warm, inviting timber. But he starts breaking down. He's like, hey, man, don't think you're alone. I lost a brother, too. And he has this, like, he's tearing up a little bit. And I fucking love that scene. So I was like, why do more scenes not have cowboys crying in Westerns? Because I was talking to my wife. We were watching it side by side. And I was like, do you think that every cowboy in the West cried themselves to sleep? Like, you can't cry out in public, right? Because then you'd not be a tough boy. And if you're not a tough boy, the tough boys are going to come and take your stuff. And soft boys don't exist. They're dead. They're buried, right? You got to be a tough boy. And I'm like, we don't always want to be tough boys. So, like, could you imagine every day toiling and you come in and you're like, fuck, I'm going to sleep on this sticky feather mattress with, little shitty springs that go all night, and I have to wear all the way down long johns, and there's no AC, and, well, me and my kids are starving because farming sucks in the desert. And I was just like, imagine the life of a normal man in that era.
Actually,
and not only on top of farming and family strife, I casually will probably have to shoot a couple people every week. I was like, every single cowboy goes to bed on a wet pillow. They all must cry. And so when Dodd was breaking down, and he didn't go like full, this is my Oscar moment, right? Like he held it back. He was real butch about it. But the fact that he still cried meant a lot to me, dude. I was like, these fucking cowboys must cry every single fucking night.
Well, and it's especially important coming from him because the whole movie has been like the shitty tough guy. So like that's the best part, is like you get this sort of beat from him. You're like, oh wow, he's actually seen some shit. And you're like, well, yeah. I mean, he's the oldest one here now, so he's the only one who has like fucking hated his life this long.
Well, yeah, also when you're that old, I mean, he might as well be 85 in Wild West years, right? Like, he's old as shit. Like, how is he not dead?
In Wild West years, he's probably 35, which makes him like 80, yes.
I just live on whiskey and murder. That's how I survive. Yeah, which Oregon Trail tombstone would he have gotten?
Yeah, the fact that none of these characters are like, I think it's... The fact that none of these characters are slowly dying from tuberculosis throughout the movie is a win as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So, but all of them have their health at least at the beginning.
Right, but I'm saying, that moment to me illustrates a lot of what I like about that movie, right? I like these little quiet moments with these characters, and this movie finds a surprising amount of them, right? At that point, they're doing almost the From Dusk Till Dawn. We're trapped in, right? It's a church instead of the titty twister. Holy ground instead of, never mind. I'll skip that pun. But neither here nor there, right? There are these moments where we're just kind of, and that's where you start to see these kind of differences between a micro budget film and a big budget film, right? Like, how do we get some bang for our buck? Let's write a scene where the actors dig in with their characters in a room that we can control and can film wherever. And I think in this movie, it just fucking works out to such tremendous effect, because the movie plays, I would say it's very fairy tale like in how it's laid out at the start, right? Because we start off on this very surreal home invasion, and Lester's saving him. We never see the burning house except for through a reflected eye, things like this, right? It feels very surreal. And when we get to the town, right, if there's an element of, there's maybe like a give you have to give every movie, right? Mine is like, how did he find someone to duel in this town? How did like the little hotshot just find someone to duel? And he's like, I got, the butcher boy got me, and that dude gets got.
Like they say at the top, like, oh, he's a bounty hunter. I'm like, really? The bounty hunter chased him that way? There's a million bounties probably going on in the Wild West. You're telling me no one else was more bothered than, oh, hey, it's that scrawny kid I could shoot.
Yeah, he should have brought a posse. He should have just been shooting them from trees and shit so he could bag all of them at once. But
yeah, it's not like this group is hidden.
No, but that's where it feels
hanging out in the bar.
Right, but that feels like one of those supernatural rudders, right? Where it's this boy who, I love that too, that he's just determined to like re-buy back the farm that was taken from him through blood. He's like, I'm going to work real hard. That was one of the best lines. It's so fucking sweet and charming, right? Where he's like, it's like, you have to work 10 years to get that far. He's like, 8 years, 11
8
months, 7 days.
8 years, 7 months, yeah.
Yeah, I just loved it. I was like,
it's
that's so but that's what I mean, though, because this movie does a great job, right? For a Wild West film of doing a lot of that kind of Western world building without, some of the more traditional ways, right? By saying something like that, what that movie's telling you is here's this kid who's been through this unimaginable, terrifying situation. Now he's almost getting killed by every salty bitch in this room where he's trying to just fucking broom up, the dust into other dusty parts. And then all of a sudden there's like, oh, there's a wanted poster. Oh, there's his brother. So you see this whole world. His brother's out becoming this notorious outlaw, and he's just desperately hanging on to this dream of rebuying the farm. So that world to me, right, even though we don't see anything in that town except for the main drag where the duel happens in that saloon and some of the rooms at the beginning, that world and town feels expansive to me, right? Because I know he's fighting for this piece of land. Like it builds the world out in a really great way in this film.
Right. I mean, to me, I feel like, and this is the thing that I love about the way Aaron Kuntz built this world, is that all the things I already know about, all the things I know like about Westerns exist. So he like doesn't have to spend any of the bullshit time a lot of people do like establishing Western motifs. And I think that's like the most important thing about this movie, because like we come into the movie like, you know how bad the West sucked? Add witches. Like that's like probably like the best way I would describe like
that's
getting into this movie.
That's the meanest thing of all time. It's so horrible. Just like
that's terrible.
I can't think of anything I'd rather do less than live in the Wild West. It's the word. Like, hey, you know what's bad? Eating
it's
shit.
Terrible.
What if I piss in your mouth while you're doing it? Like, yeah, I get it. The West is like just that scene when they invade the train. Me and Amy were just like, could you fucking imagine? You're just like, I'm commuting to grandma's. Oh, there's brains splattered by my, 7C ticket.
Yeah.
And these people are just jumping in. Oh.
Well, think about getting on the train in the Wild West. Like, it's funny, like, because I watched, probably last week, I actually watched the assassination of Jesse James, and I was watching the movie, and I was like, I thought the same thing. I was like, imagine being on a train going like, well, yeah, I'm going to go to see my parents or something like that, and be like, however, there is like an 80% chance on this train ride, someone's going to like hustle me for all my dough, and that's like my life. Like, again, that's like the terribleness of the Wild West, and then you add the supernatural elements that get added later on in the movie, and you're just like, no one can survive the West, let alone survive it with fucking,
no
witches of the old. Like that's like, but that's the thing I love the most about the movie is that it's part of it.
Yeah, but because it's literally just this. It's this desert of life, right? And you see every character has this small thing they cling to, right? Whether it's the goofball, gunman who's like, I just want to be worth more money when they shoot me. Or Calamity Jane who's just running around hooking up with dueling brothers and, grinding on guys
two-timing
on the
bros,
train.
all kinds of stuff.
Then there's just the hardcore murderer Dot. Like, everyone, It actually kind of tickles my D&D bone. It's a really good like D&D party they built. You know, a lot of interesting characters that immediately fill a role in your mind. So it was really fun to watch. But it's just, but that's what I mean, right? So you see these characters like, fuck, that's all they got to live for is this one little thing in this world of utter dog shit, right? And it's so stunning at the start. And then they just add this giant wild mystery on it. The room with all the tough guys, right? The Pinkertons, right? Just sitting in the fucking room guarding the chest. It's just one of those awesome, it's one of those things that movies can do so much better than any medium. Where just an image can set your mind ablaze. Where you're like, what the fuck is that? And the movie doesn't give us a long time to sit and ponder that, but a couple minutes, which in movie time feels really expansive. I mean, they could have pulled Godzilla out of that box by the time they opened it for me. You're like, why are all these dudes guarding it? And he says they're Pinkertons, and why do they have an armed escort? And oh my God. Bonus points for some of the kills and effects in this movie. The spur to the mouth. Woo! That was a fucking rough one, dude. But that's what I mean. I was like, that's another thing. I'm like, you can just be doing your job, making America safe, you know, by being a pinky guy. The next thing you know, you're getting spur faced. I was like, not cool. Not cool, Wild West.
It's yeah, I mean, again, it's so you start there, and I do love like the impetus for why they have to go to the brothel. Like it is like a great like perfect Wild West thing, because the whole time I'm thinking like, there's no way this guy's gonna survive. Like he gets like shot and he gets gut shot, and I'm like, dead without question.
Well, yeah, you're skipping like a big part of the movie, right? Which is our dual reveal, right? Is that the young guy, William, right?
Yeah.
He sees a girl and he lets her go, right? He lets her go. And immediately in my mind, I'm screaming at the TV, take the fucking gun. Like, she's shot and he wants to be a decent guy. Of course, because it's the Wild West and everything sucks. That girl comes back and shoots his brother. And then the chief is like, no, like I thought he was saying like two moons and this guy's dead. Right? Meanwhile, they open the box and it's just a girl in a Hannibal mask. And right. But see, that's another one. This is where you start latching on to Doug, because even though he's a piece of shit, he's like, they don't just put people in boxes because they ain't worried about them. And I was like, yes, like this should matter to you guys.
Voice of reason. But again, I love that. Again, this like constant theme in the movie of like, listen, the Wild West sucks, but let's add a couple extra things that are going to suck even more. And so it's like, if you get gut shot, you're probably going to die. And then you're going to find your way, you're going to finally get on your way to not a doctor, a brothel, in fact.
Well, can we stop? Because what they actually find is like an Evil Dead shanty in the woods, right? They send their two guys out and they're like, there's nothing over there. And the girl escapes, right? She gets out of her little bonds and she comes back. She's like, mother's ready. I'll take you. I'm like, what? They go into town, right? Because she mentions brothel. The speed with which this man's friends, right? The band of brothers are just like, I'm sad, but whiskey and snatch is so rapid. And that's why I was like, I don't know if this is some kind of, it reminded me a bit of Pinocchio. It was a little Pinocchio at the donkey park.
It was a little paradise. It was definitely a little Paradise Island.
A little tiny Pinocchio, right? Where I was like, all the little Pinocchios came and they had a drink, and next thing you know, they're all, their fucking noses are growing and they're running up to the brothel rooms. But I was just like, the speed with which that happened. Like, we need a doctor. I'll be in room 7 plowing. It's so, but again, that's such a fucking great moment. Because you're like, again, it gets back to the life these people lead. It's this subtle reinforcing of every fucking moment could just be it. And you're like, well, I'm not going to waste a perfectly good brothel waiting on a doctor.
Right. Well, I mean, and again, this is, that's the like, that's the limitless potential of the Wild West is like, how terrible can this get? Do you think I have time to, plow? Is that possible?
Think of this, though. Think of this. most of them don't even finish one drink before the one guy's in the bathtub with his fucking feet up. The other guys are getting massaged. I was like, they're not even like, oh, well, now we're drunk.
No, they're not even getting drunk. They just need something. But like,
yeah.
Again, and it's Melora Walters, who I think is a fucking phenomenal actress. I love seeing her in movies, which is, again, a credit to why this movie is worth watching, in my opinion, because people like Melora Walters and Zachary Knighton and a lot of people, Pat Healy, like these are like indie people who like making good movies. So to me, they wouldn't sign on for this unless it was going to be something worth watching. So I love sitting down and watching these guys do their thing and getting separated and that kind of stuff, because when all hell starts breaking loose, which, by the way, some of my all-time favorite makeup effects. It's like the combination of like The Descent and The Witches, which it's perfect timing.
Let's do this right now. Walk me through what you liked about our witches in this movie. What was a little different that kind of stuck out for you? What made them pop? Because I thought the same thing. I was like, this is so much different than how we normally see witch movies. And it felt really fun and exciting to me. What was it for you that lit you up right away?
I just like that it's not... I like that it does the witches thing. It's not doing this just... I don't know. It's not doing... Let's say it's not doing an American Horror Story thing. Like, it's not just... a bunch of women standing around trying to sacrifice someone. It's literally
doing numbers at the top. Real missed opportunity.
Like, I like though that there is this sort of the switch and the makeup. I love the shot where the one's crawling on the ceiling. Like that, I'm like, holy shit, I am in for this right now.
That's super cool. That's like one of those new abilities. You're like, oh shit. But
yeah.
Oh my god.
Like
MVP,
I like that the witches
of the brothel
are
scene is without a doubt when Lester fucking shotguns the lady and she goes, and flies up on the antlers. So good. Yes. But it was strange on a couple levels, right? Because what I thought is, I was like, man, these are more like 28 Days Later zombies. The Descent's a good analog, right? Where you're like, that is what it felt like to me. It didn't feel like witches at all, right? We had our main two witches, right? So Pearl being born, maybe. We don't even know what the fuck Pearl is supposed to be, right? So I like the going back and we do the classic witch story. But again, this witch story has this really cool dramatic undertone. Where you're like, the ginger priest 100% knocked her up with that baby, right? Because when the men grab her and spin Pearl's mother around, right? And she sees the priest, she's like, please, let me have the baby and you can take me. She's not talking to a murder priest from Salem. She's talking to the baby daddy. And again, he's like, I will disguise my sins and, burn you at the stake. And so it gives it this extra juice, right? You're like, oh, so now this scene has some juice. It's not just another burning at the stake. It's this real emotional fucking moment. And seeing a pregnant woman being burned, of course, is always going to be a visceral moment. But that's what I mean. There's this extra juice to it, right? And then they give you these tidbits of, oh, that was 200 years ago. Oh, that was the day my daughter was born. Wait. What? Excuse? Hold on. And then next thing you know, everyone is turning into, it does kind of have that witches vibe, right? The Angelica Houston takes her face off, right? But they're also, what I like about them, right, is not only do they feel like zombies more than witches, right? And then when we get out in the woods, they're almost feral, like werewolves. There's this predatory, striking nature, right? Like claws and teeth more than, brewing bubbly potions and cackling. Yeah. You still have that a little bit with the other two. But,
sure.
What I thought, it was just that interesting nature. And there's something they did in the makeup that made them look like hellfire was kind of burning through the skin, right? Which made them feel almost like they were vengeful spirits sent back, right? Because this movie also gets on this original myth of the Wild West of, this is when we built, like everything we built in our country in the early phases, we built off the backs of innocents and less fortunates, right? Like this is a true... eat the other so they don't eat you kind of a society at this point. And so that priest to save his skin destroyed this woman. And so the thought of them being sent back to avenge that it felt a little extra cool to me. I was really into that.
Yeah, I like that. I just love those. Like, I love the sort of. I love that we're not precious with the witches here. Like, I think that's the thing I like the most is that it feels scary because it's not just. Like, it's not like Dracula brides and that kind of shit. Because that's also a very popular thing is like, oh, they're seductresses. They're like succubus. I'm like, no one's going to try to bang a corpse zombie, hellfire burnt lady with, surprisingly gray hair. Yeah. Like, I like that we're not leaning it.
I do get the feeling that Dodd was like, finish, question mark?
Yes.
When he got interrupted and turned around and saw the witch, was he like, I think I can handle it.
Yeah, I was like, "Ooh, sweet. Are we gonna get Dodd doing like a drive angry and like taking out witches while he's finishing inside one?" Like, but there is just this sort of like, there is that great originality though of doing it where like, no, these aren't just, these aren't just like seductresses. Like, and I hate that. Like, it's a trope of.
I mean, technically, they were all brothel prostitutes as their ruse.
I mean. Not a very good ruse. By the time the clock struck 12, they all turned into hags. So would have figured it out eventually.
It's so weird because some horror movies love to do this where the monsters like let the guys get like just far. I mean, this isn't like at least the tall man in Phantasm. He used to disguise himself as the woman in red dress, and he let his titties get felt up before he's like, "Ha ha!" And I was like, "There's something in that for you, tall man. You like the titty squeeze, or else you just admit."
Yeah, I liked that it didn't lean into that brothel thing of like, oh, well, we'll let them all fuck and then feel good about them. So I was like, no, kill them. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's this lulling them into a sense of security? They're idiots and they're going to get laid in a brothel. Clearly, they have no regard for their health.
Really interesting too, right? Because Lester, who had the scars on his back, he was kind of getting rubbed down. Wiley, Pat Healy's character, was just getting his hair brushed.
Yeah,
right. There's a bathtub guy. Of course, Dodge just like, fuck this, life's short, bend over. Right? But that you saw, again, it's very D&D, like, you're in a brothel, you see a prosty. How do you react? Like a gentleman, comb my hair.
Yeah, it's perfect. Like, everybody's doing it. Like, what I like is that everybody in the movie, and I think this is the thing I like the most about the gang itself, is everyone is uniquely their own character. Like, there's no one that just fades into the background of like, oh, that person. Like, everyone's got a little thing, and you got something. And you don't have to waste 5 minutes
per character doing it. They just Wiley's character, who thinks he's this fancy gentleman, right? Yeah, he thinks he's the brains, and the thought of he really just wants to feel pampered, right? He just wants his hair combed. I love that. That's the kind of little character shit that I eat up, right? Like, you don't have to give me a monologue. Well, I started being book smart when my pappy threw a Bible at my brain at, 4th grade because I didn't milk the cow right. Like, you could do it that way, too, with a monologue or whatever. I like the hair brushing. Yeah. I like it, man. I thought that was cool. But, yeah. So, about the witches. Talk to me about Pearl. What on earth is even Pearl? Is Pearl a real girl? Is she a crow? We saw her coming out of, as the kids would say, some cap, right? So they pulled Mom off the old pyre, and they took her in. Yeah, some cap, some fucking crispy-ass pussy, right? Some cap. So she was just burnt to a crisp, and they're like, she's crowning. Her, weird friends are hanging out. And I believe it's a crow's beak to come out. So I was like, so that's Pearl. Is Pearl a crow? What is Pearl?
I mean, if Pearl's a crow, technically that would make them that's just like a devil spawn, right?
Yeah, that's what I was like. Are they going for like an almost Antichrist scenario?
I don't know if it's Antichrist. I think it's more just because like Antichrist is like has that. Here's my thing. Whenever it's like an Antichrist thing, every Antichrist story ends up like, well, they're here to like take over the world. This doesn't feel like a take over the world type thing. This just feels like straight up revenge. They have their world. This is this is revenge. So to me, it's more just like she banged a demon spawn. Like that's just all it is. Like Pearl's just spawn of demon, not devil.
Well,
which I like a little better.
In the Odyssey, right? It's Circe, right? The woman who draws sailors in and turns them into livestock. That's very much what this feels like, right? Like being scorned and destroyed for no reason. And then you are now the lure, right? So, travelers are caught. Because there's that really interesting line when they first get to the brothel where Pearl comes in and the mom's like, how are you enjoying your presence? And she's like, so much. So you get the feeling that this Dalton gang may have been the long game target the entire time, right? That they were somehow gifted to her, right? That Pearl is sent here specifically to be the worm on the hook to draw in these unfortunate souls, right? And they're like, if they're in the brothel and they get in the bathtub within 3 minutes, we know they're a damn soul. Get them, right? Just way too quick into the bath, right? I couldn't get over that. But I thought that was a cool, because we see a couple cool things, right? Like I liked when the witches pretended to be the brother and they didn't know to say, hey, little brother. They shot it and it turns into crows as it falls. We also saw what could have been a werewitch scenario where one of them bites Lester's leg, and next thing you know, a crow burrows from his calf all the way up through his mouth.
Yes.
Horrendous death. So these witches have some extra cool powers and abilities, man. I was fascinated by that.
I like that. Yeah, I liked that.
We totally skipped over what really is our new game in the village. I thought was really cool, which is one of the coolest things I loved in the movie. One of the coolest moments, right? Is when the younger brother's downstairs, right? And he's kind of like, "Yeah, these ladies aren't my type. Like I'm not here to fuck or drink. I'm just trying to buy the family farm, right?" They hint at, he's probably gay, something like that, right? So he's not being won over by any of the delights of this brothel, right?
I thought it was more just a hint that he was a virgin.
No, well, at the end, he's like, what are you going to give me? Money, women, men, right? He says that at the end with the question.
Yeah,
so I assume that's what they were getting at, right?
Got it. Okay.
So he's not being lured in by any of their carnal delights, right? And so then she starts questioning. She's like, so you've never killed anyone? He's like, no, I've never killed anything. Or like, he's never killed another person, right? He's an innocent. And they do this thing where it's like this hard, like Evil Dead cut with every witch's head like snapping like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, we got a non-bathtubber. This is big. This is huge. Right? Get out the fancy plates. This is the true innocent blood. And all the heads snap. Like they can't fucking believe that in the Wild West there's one decent human being. And I thought that was so cool.
Which again goes back to our credence. How fucking terrible could the Wild West be that not a single decent person's been to this brothel town in eons?
Oh, I bet that brothel is regularly traveled.
Or is it?
I mean, they're all surviving on tainted shit blood, right? I did love that they just... There was a shot, and this is so funny, because my wife chimes in here and there with the good one. And so there's the scene when they cut, and they're like, it's blood magic, right? And I don't know why part of the blood magic is we need to put Pat Healy's thinning hair into the blood before we dump it on the lady. But my wife's... So they're dumping the blood on this lady, and her tits are out. And my wife goes, nice of them to let the busty lady go first. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, okay. Like, the bustiest witch just needs to get 90s double dared so that you can see it. I thought that was good. That's why you should watch movies with your wife, guys. They'll show you the things that we overlook.
Yeah, for real. Oh, Amy Griffey viewings are always a classic for this pod, I gotta say.
She just kind of looked at me like, not the most artistic of choices. Huh? I was like, I don't know. I didn't sign the waivers. I don't know what they I thought that was so funny. Well, she's got a bigger chest area. We better use up the blood on her first. The rest of you lighter ladies, you'll get the leftovers with the paintbrush. I don't know. She was just staring at me, and I was like, what did I do? I was like, I didn't put the boobs in the movie. She just like... She looked at me like I had just run and jumped in a bathtub. Like that's
Dear
ridiculous. Yeah, they
Classic.
also. That's what I was wondering. I was like, I wonder when they put the Pat Healy hair in the blood, if that's how they tricked him into eating the glass later.
Oh, I assumed
Maybe
that
that's
was
how
part
the
of it.
Oculus ruse went down. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
It was just.
Oh yeah.
It was a cool movie.
I
man.
loved that Pat Healy gag too. That was like straight
It was
out of
his
Event
fancy
Horizon,
little
man.
jerky holder. Oh.
Yeah.
That's his one little delight, man.
That little fucking
dude, you're
Event
talking
Horizon
about when he
throwback.
Event Horizoned his ass. And he's like, hell is our only treat or something like that.
It was like, I seen the pale door. Just fucking Event Horizon himself.
I
That
feel
is just
bad.
so dope.
I do. I
What's
will
that?
say this. Maybe I was laughing when my wife was like grilling me about boobs when they said it. I don't think I ever figured out what the fucking pale door was. I was like, is that the brothel ladies? Is that the cap? Is that the saloon door that works like a TARDIS and can send them out to the woods or wherever?
I thought the pale door was just Hellmouth in general. So I could be
that
wrong.
could
I mean,
be.
I know it's at the top of that with that Edgar Allan Poe quote. So I assume that's where it comes from. But
My wife was probably yelling at me about it. What the hell?
probably
What the hell? No, she's really cool. She's really cool. I don't know why I make her sound like that. It was just
Because
so
it's funny.
Well, it's funny because you watch it and you don't even think twice about it. I've seen so many horror movies, and you're just like, yeah, there's boobs. Cool.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
boobs that have no
again,
reason to
like-
be in the film, but they're just there. And you're like, fine. But my wife just looked at me and was just like, trash person.
oh, Amy, so judgmental.
So what
I
else
mean,
did
honestly-
you love on the way out, though? I like Dodd's exit.
I love Dodd's exit.
And
I
he's just
like
we've had this meeting for a long time. He went down like a boss. He finally showed emotion. I will say this. I wanted to murder that younger Dalton motherfucker. Because Dodd's like, I'll take him. And he's trying to kill as many as he can. He's getting chewed on. And the guy's like, I better stop behind this wall that's 20 feet away. It's like, run, you little motherfucker. All right, so let me hit you with this, Alex. I thought the climax of this movie, right? As we've talked about this, we talked about it even with The Wretched recently. The movie starts to lose its steam a little bit when we have our it's time to fight the witch or the monster moment, right? So this one is spectacular, and they set up the red line around the church. Why this place has a church, I don't even know, right? Maybe it's part of their
Shocking.
game, and they can come and go as they want. Right? You get the
Part of the
cult
gambit.
imagery, you get the skulls, the mask, the hoods. I'm in on all of it. All this part is fun. Now we have to fight the monster. I think this movie makes a brilliant choice and says, we're not fighting the monster at all. Right? And I will say it was a legitimate nod of the cap from me where I was like, holy shit. They found a way around it, right? So instead of we're going to battle monsters with our pistols, right? Go out the way Dodd went out. The way most of these movies end is an inevitable monster fight.
Right.
They went back to what I love so much in the first scene is this bond between brothers, right? The brother magic, the passing of the scarf for the last time. What did you make of this final moment, man?
I mean, I just like that. I like you lose because again, like you lose a lot of this. Like, all right, there's a lot going on in this movie. There's a lot of gore. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of horror
Bloody
elements
boobs.
happening.
There's a
love,
lot of
though,
bloody boobs, according to
that-
Amy, yes.
There's a lot of bloody titties, the chestier ones.
Yeah.
The thing I love though is that again, this does a great job of just kind of bookending itself. I think the brother magic and the brotherly love aspect gets lost in the middle. Not necessarily lost, like it just gets sidetracked because
Well, the one
we have to
brother
get
is
through
just
this
laid
movie.
up. He's shot and out of the story.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I like that they come back to this. It's a central theme, and you realize that that's what the movie really is about. It's not just about brothel or revenge or any of that shit. It's about these two brothers making their way through the world together. This shitty world that is the Wild West.
Well, honestly,
Just want to get back to that.
But I loved it so much because he's just like, I want his safe passage. And this guy knows because they've essentially said, like, we can live off his blood for decades. Like, this guy's becoming a dog to these fleas, right? Like, he's going to get fucking drained. Or me to mosquitoes every time I go outside, you fucking vile devil bugs. But neither here nor there. Like, he's just going to be there to be drained and probably tortured and, God knows what else is going to happen.
Right.
But this comes on the back of this revelation that Lester gives us too, that his dad was a robber, and he didn't want you to follow in his footsteps. Don't carry the hate in your heart. And in this world that we spend time in, it's really easy to see how hardened everyone becomes. Like, I better shoot first and take what I can because that's what's going to happen to me. And how the older brother never had a choice. And I thought it was weird that his first choice in the movie, because he doesn't make the choice for the younger brother to sacrifice himself, but he does make the choice to ride off on that fucking horse. I thought that was a really strange, not like a moment where I was like, that's ridiculous. I thought it was super fascinating, right?
Yes.
Why he actually rode away from his brother. And again, he's been passed out for a lot of this, so he doesn't know about the boundaries and the brothel and whatever else.
He has not a lot of spatial awareness as far as his day is gone.
He knows he's leaving his younger brother with these, people that probably don't seem right. And he goes, and I thought that was such a beautiful moment, man, where he's like, just forgive dad. Don't, like, bury the hate, right?
Yeah.
And we cut to this at the end. We just see this very stoic version of the farmhood life, right? The movie starts with the farm burning and in chaos. And now we see this guy, right? He survived his wounds. He has a kid, right? And a wife. And he's just out farming and feeding chickens. And he has this little cross to his brother with the brother magic scarf, man. He doesn't wear it anymore. He has it on there for him, right? And that series of images, right? So I'd ask you, why did he leave, right? Why did he let his brother make the deal? His younger good brother, the one truly good person in the world, why did he let him become the blood bank for these ladies, assuming he knows, which he may just not have known and been delirious. And what did that series of images at the end mean to you?
I mean, to me, it's about, well, I don't know. I mean, you have little brothers, so I'm the oldest. I think you're the oldest.
I'll tell you this for a fact. Both of my brothers would have been like, yeah, let Josh go. I love him. And as soon as that little, like, ranch archway appeared in the smoke, they'd be like, fuck you! And they would run and leave me to be this week's feast. Both of my brothers would betray me.
But I think that's what it is like the purity of, to me, it was like, the purity of this brother has to, like, him saying, like, forgive father, like, get over it. Like, not get over it, that's a little glib. But, like, forgive father, like, be at peace with the fact that this was your life, this was our life, and now, but it doesn't have to be.
After
like,
his brother always told him, let go of that past, right?
Right, exactly. He's spitting it back, and I love that kind of thing about, like, hey, not only should you forget the past, you got to forgive it. Yeah. And I think that's, like, the most important thing about the brother bond between them. So, like, the reason he would leave is because this is a brother who's been saving his money. He's been trying to keep, and this is a brother who, out of the goodness of his heart, was going to help him, chain gang it and so on and so forth. He's the only one who survived because he's a good enough person. He can survive this, whatever fresh hell this is, because it can't be nearly as bad as dysentery, which is almost certainly in his future. Whatever fresh hell this is, he knows his younger brother can take it. Like, it's about love and remembrance and making sure that when you forgive yourself, when you forgive yourself and you forgive your past, you can put anyone at peace. And I think that's kind of what I got.
Well, I wondered if it was almost he didn't fully understand what was happening, because they don't get a lot of moments on screen together, but the ones they do, they really make the most of. And I love that moment earlier when he's like, I got to tell you, like, I saw her, I didn't shoot her. And he's like, I know, right? He's like, I know, and I'm glad you couldn't pull that trigger. And I thought that was just one of those awesome moments. You felt like that was going to be the, like, late third act reveal. I got him shot. And they'll be like, you're the reason we're in this fucking mess. And that's when everyone fall apart.
That's what I thought,
but
too.
But the brother just gave him that, no, I'm fucking glad you couldn't, man. And so part of me wonders if he just woke up and he's like, am I in heaven? There's two ladies and my younger brother's there being a great guy, and, like, I'm going to ride this horse, like, And then all of a sudden he gets back to his life and he's like, fuck.
I mean, it could be, but I think that definitely could be it. I feel like that almost cheapened the point a little bit, obviously. But, I mean, to me, it's just it's the perfect bookend to a movie about two brothers trying to survive not just the Wild West, but now witches and a death cult and all these other things that, like, they weren't necessarily prepared for, but more importantly, what the bigger thing they weren't prepared for is having to have this revelation about themselves as brothers, which is like, you have to forgive the past to move on. And I think that's the thing, is like train robbery and all this stuff that the older brother was doing throughout the, in the preamble of the movie itself, is him not forgiving the past. Like, he's repeating it because he can't forgive what it is. So him forgiving is what lets it go finally. Yeah. Not necessarily forgetting, but forgiving.
And he can, upon the ruins of their family and the lies of their family, he can build an earnest home and raise William Jr., whatever. He named his son after his brother, right? And he can give him that life that his brother was working to save up for, right? And so in a weird way, I think that's kind of the cool last image of the film, is this grief, right? And I think that was what everyone in the West felt. I think all cowboys fell asleep crying in their pillows every night. How horrible it was. But instead of letting that tragedy harden you, at the end, the brother just fucking melts like butter, man, and just lets it all go. Now he's a farmer, and he's got a kid, and everything's cool. And so his tragedy led him to a place of softening up and hoping for the best, right? Like, it's weird that all of this leads to a hopeful ending. But I thought that was such a cool, because honestly,
but that's what you want.
The shooting witches only gets you so far. And I thought that was the thing this movie did really well, was finding those really beautiful moments to fucking tickle the heartstrings, man. And that final image it just does work. And then there's a crow, right? Yeah. So they did the horror movie thing. I'm like, don't ruin my idyllic fucking imagery. Because then I was like, is that Pearl? Is that the brother now? He's checking in.
But that's what I love the most, is it honors both genres that it's playing with, which is like, you have like the little tag at the end for the horror genre people. Yeah. And then for a Western, that's exactly how most Westerns end, with this kind of like sunny disposition of like, man, it's shit out here, but we are alive. Yeah. Like, and that's, every Western I've ever, like, I think that's the really fascinating thing about, like, this reminded me a little bit of how like 3:10 to Yuma ends. The original one, not the remake, but the original one ends with like Van Heflin literally walking over the ridge and saying, "Well, hello, wife," and like that's like the thing. Like, you think he's dead, and that is the thing that Westerns do very well, is like end on a happy ending. You have to have the hero win in some way, and this was a little backwards, but the hero technically wins.
But in a way, so yeah, the younger brother and the witch actually have a pretty parallel journey, so it makes sense they're stuck together, right? So this witch is trapped in the, what if the priest didn't knock me up and burn me? She has a daughter who's probably really a crow hellspawn, and she's kind of living out a false life in a more obvious way with her little brothel bathtub setup. But the brother's doing that too. This, I can just go back and rebuy the family that I lost. So them both being stuck in that tragedy, it did feel like the younger brother never could have ridden out of there and been okay, right? He was the one who was constantly stuck in the problems of the past and the idyllic what could have. And the weirdly so is the mama witch. So maybe it all works out. Who was the crow at the end? Last thing, who was the crow at the end?
I actually thought it was the brother, but
I liked to think it was the brother too. But I was like, I feel like it was probably Pearl, like a new innocent to
probably,
eat.
Right.
They're coming in for like, that house is going to be Golden Corral in like 6 years, for sure. But that's not as nice. That's not as heartfelt. So yeah,
not a Ponderosa.
My final pitch to you guys, right? For whatever ratings are on sites and this and that, I don't think that shit matters. What I found this movie to be is immensely full of heart, chock full of scary horror imagery that I fucking love. And I just, honestly, I like spending time in this weird ghost brothel town with this cool D&D crew of fucking gnarly cowboys. You get to see actors that you normally wouldn't see just delivering. And it's fun, man. It sells the ending. To me, this is the perfect find this video on demand. This is the great kind of thing that hopefully is going to rise up, as there's just kind of a hole right now without movie theaters and this and that. There's not a metric that this movie doesn't deliver for me on, man. I I found myself captivated, and we didn't even talk about this movie has a fucking killer score.
Oh my
it's
god,
so fucking good, man.
So fucking good,
and
man.
That would be my argument to you guys, man. Don't look online and try to find reasons why people don't like things and be like, well, one guy didn't like the amount of dirt on a white shirt, so I'll skip it.
Yeah.
This movie is so fucking full of things to love.
Yeah.
That
I think
I
that's
would
the
say
important
spend your
thing.
time and money, man.
That's the important thing about this time we all have at home, which is while we all might be working from home, just dealing with all of this, take advantage of the fact that streaming has a lot to offer that maybe movie theaters can't. Like, while we can't go to the theater and enjoy that time in the dark, find something here that you wouldn't find on a normal. Like, do the deep Amazon dive, do the deep Hulu dive, do the deep Netflix dive,
and even more importantly than that, fucking pay for it, man.
Fucking pay for
these
if
movies.
It's on demand.
They need it.
Give this movie your money.
And that's how we'll get more of these kinds of movies, which
I
would love to get this movie every week. You know?
Absolutely.
I want a movie like this every week, and this is how we make that happen, guys. So
pay your monies, put your money where your mouth is, guys. This is the way to do it.
As our friend Josh Lobo said when he came and pitched his movie that you should also pay for, I Trapped the Devil, pay for that shit. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think that was his exact phrasage, but pay for that shit. Yeah, man. I was so glad to walk through the Pale Door. I hope you guys find it. I hope you pay for it, and I hope you enjoy it too. If you do, shout it out on your socials, spread it around. Do the same for this amazing podcast episode. Woo! Candle, I'm a tough boy. I'll come and steal your shit. Yeah, so share us around. My impressions of cowboys are great. Find us on all your social media. Shout us out. Shout out the Pale Door. You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Maybe you have some other hidden gems that are out right now that we can pay for and cover. We would love to do that. You need to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Nerd Alchemist. It's mandatory. Do it. Or else I'm coming to your house as a crow. And, yeah, that's all, man. We just love this movie. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Alex Dandino.